The code for the Quizmaster has already been given to you at the start of this tutorial. I've screen captured it and put it onto the first section of the tutorial, but I'm going to go through it anyway just to make sure you understand what it does. So the things I have programmed in this application are the check answer button for question 1, the check answer button for question 2, the check answer button for question number 3, and as a little bonus at the end, I've created a timer that changes the color of the background slowly and gradually as we go through the tutorial or go through the application. So we'll start with the check answer button. So what's happening here, you check the option you want, and again the option buttons only allow you to check one. Depending on which one you select, there'll be output put into this text box. So looking at the code for this, it's simply an action. So we click on the button, and what we're looking at here is 5 short little if-then statements. And the way the option button works is you're checking to see if the value is true or false. If the value of the option button is true, that means it has been selected. Then you will have a consequence and a simple end if. If the value is set to false, that means it is not selected. So again, 5 simple little if-then buttons. The first one says if blue button value equals true, that means the person has selected blue as their favorite color. I'm going to put into the answer box, and the text box, which is called answer 1, you chose blue. Pretty straightforward stuff. And I repeat that same thing 5 times for the green button, the other button, the pink button, and the red button. And that's it. Simple if then. You're checking for a true or a false value. So we'll back out of there and we'll take a look now at the second check answer button. Now this one's a little more complicated because what's happening here is you can check multiple boxes, and depending on which boxes are checked, you're going to see these image wells become visible. So we'll jump into it. Now, as I was coding this, I realized that if I change my answers, I've looked at the buttons, I've made my checks, and I show some of the image wells on the right-hand side. If I want to do it again, I have to hide all of the images to try it again, otherwise they all just sit there. So what I did to solve that issue was take all of the pictures, and those pictures are called pick basketball, pick hockey, pick baseball, pick rugby, pick soccer, and pick volleyball. I initially set their visible property to false, which means when I click on that button, instantly they are all hidden. So that acts kind of like a reset, hide them all, and then again, just a series of simple if-thens. If basketball check, which is the name of that checkbox, if its value equals true, that means it has been checked. So if that value is true, I simply set the value of the corresponding picture, which is pick basketball, to true, and that picture will show up. So I'm using that same simple bit of code for each one of them. If the hockey check value is true, it has been checked, the picture shows up. Baseball picture shows up, rugby picture shows up, soccer picture shows up, and volleyball picture shows up. They all will appear as long as the checkbox is checked. And again, every time I hit that button, it resets them all to false, so it hides them all and then re-shows the ones that are indeed checked. So I can try it over and over and over, and it will always work. So there shouldn't be anything really new to you there, other than understanding that you check the value of a checkbox, just like the option button, and you're dealing with true and false. True is checked, false is not checked. So the last one is a little bit different, but again, nothing beyond the context of what you do not already know. I'm going to look at the check answer button here, and the first thing we're going to look at is all of the options. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different options listed under my pop-up menu. So what we're doing here is just seeing which one is selected and then making the appropriate comment. So my pop-up menu is called Subjects Pop, and what I'm looking for is the text value that is in that pop-up menu. So whatever option they choose. So if subjectspop.text equals technology inside quotations, I know that technology has been the option they have selected from the pop-up menu, and I'm making answer3.text, my text field that's right beside it, print you chose technology. Pretty straightforward. I do the same with each option: math, gym, science, English, art, music, and other. Okay? Now, I've kept these options pretty simple. You're choosing the option, and that's what it says. It gives you the corresponding subject. If you want to make it a little fancier and give you some different output, you certainly can do that, as long as there is an output option based on the subject or the option that has been chosen. All right, there we go for the 3 check answer buttons. Now, you may have noticed again that as I run this application, the timer, what it does is it changes the background color slowly and gradually during use of the application. So I'm going to show you how I did that. So what I needed to do to start that was set properties. So I set properties for 3 public variables. So a public variable is a variable that can be understood by any control within your window, or even beyond that, any control on any window in your application. So to create a product on your window, and you pull down from here, you're going to add a property to your window. So once you add that property, you will get a new property window popping up. You create the name of the variable. You tell me if it's going to be an integer or a string. You make it public, which means everything within this application can understand it. And what I did for the 3 that I created B as integer, G as integer, and in this one I actually gave it an initial value of 255, and I'll explain that in just a second. And I created R as integer. So that stands for blue, green, red. I'm using those 3 letters as the variables that I will utilize to create the background changing in the timer. So once I've created those 3 variables, they're all integers, and 2 of them have a default value of 0, and 1 of them has a default value of 255. So if I go back and look at my timer, the action code, the first one is R, and that is my value of the red in the RGB color spectrum. So I'm simply adding 1 to that. So as my timer is set to run very quickly, every instance of that timer will add the value of 1 to what the current value of the red is. And it's going to cycle through 1 all the way to 255, and when it gets to 255 or 256 specifically, it's going to reset back to 1 and then start counting over again. So the value of R is going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all the way to 255 and starting over. The value of G, which is the green value, is going to start at 255 because I told it to do that when I set up my variable, and it's going to count down. So it's going to go from 255 down to 0. When it gets to 0, if G is less than 1, it's going to go back to 255 and start again. Now my third option for the RGB value, hold on, I'll let my bell go here. There we go. Starts at 0 and counts again up to 255. Once it gets to 256, it drops back down to 1 and starts over. So these 3 values are cycling between 1 and 255. Then what I'm doing is simply stating window1.backColor, which is the background color of the window, is going to be represented by these numbers. That's the RGB values I've created here. So quickly, when I look at my timer, I will see that it is running roughly every third of a second. It changes those values. So 300, 1,000, so roughly every third of a second. It's slowly going through the entire color spectrum as those RGB values change. So that's what it is. That timer is a little bonus.
Would all members of the Interactive Club who are taking part today in the stop conference make your way down to the main foyer at this time? That's all members of the Interactive Club taking part in today's workshop. Thank you.
The joys of making video tutorials, the announcements come on unexpectedly. So there's my timer. That's a little bonus. You don't need to do that if you don't want to. You can go ahead and just put a picture in the background or set it as a static color. All right, thank you very much for watching. There's the code for the Quizmaster. Good luck with that one, and you can show me how it all came together when you are finished.